you're working as your own person, there's so much work and like little tasks behind it that feels so daunting, but you want to try everything at the same time. Do you relate?
Yes, I mean, right now, like as we speak, on my agenda, I am trying to learn a new language. I
Which
am
one?
trying Latvian
Okay.
to get my
To
Latvian
get your
citizenship,
Latin
right?
music.
I am trying to build the best six pack I've ever had. I
Can't
am
wait.
trying to edit together a full feature length, like evening length dance film premiere for Juilliard. I am trying to process 7 terabytes of data. I'm trying to build 2 websites, and I'm in my mind, I'm trying to do all of this at the same time. And what that actually means is that I do all of these things like
Or like not even doing them. Exactly.
right or not even or,
Exactly. It's just these.
that's big, right? Not even doing them, just like kind of dabbling, but not making any progress.
Oh my God, I relate so much because there's so many things I want to do. And then I feel like I do, yeah, like you said, this, you do one step here, but then it doesn't even, you barely see the progress. Like,
You lose the momentum. You lose the
yeah.
momentum. Yeah. Whereas like I look at my mother, and my mother is a huge inspiration of mine, and that how she's able to like go into something every night. She practices Spanish. She studies Spanish for an hour. Like doesn't matter what's going on in her life, she locks herself away. She works in Spanish for an hour. Whereas like I'm lucky if I get in 12 minutes of Latvian, right? 12 minutes of me like on my app. I'm like, bing, 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 bing. Like,
Literally
here I am.
Duolingo.
Right. No, yeah, literally Duolingo. And I'm like, this, and so that's something that I'm actually, I'm like, you got me. That I need to work on for myself is how do I settle it in my heart that there's time and that I don't need to do it all at once. Like I can just do one thing. Yes, and actually, but I can see it. I can see it bubbling. What I wanted to say, and this may prove useful for you and for those listening. I have a sense that the two of us are maximizers. And a maximizer is someone
I
who
think I'm gonna
wants.
cry. I just feel like this overwhelming
Yeah,
energy
ignite.
of relatability.
Yes, this is and maximizing comes from love. It comes from cherishing something of like you want to make the most of it. You love it all. It's all great. We want to put so much into all of it. Um, and I mean, here I am, I'm 22. I've yet to understand how to rectify that love and that desire and that feeling of scarcity and preciousness with the idea that there's time and just work on one thing for now. I haven't gotten there yet, but who knows? Maybe a future interviewee will have the answer for that.
Everything you say is just like my jaw's just dropping because I just feel like I've never had such in-depth of conversation on this kind of topic because I don't know, and I feel like other people relate too. I'll be doing a task and just telling my friends, and I'm like, I don't feel stressed enough, and then I feel guilty, and I'm like, I should be doing way more. And for example, I'll be working on one thing at a time, and I'm like, this is actually quite easy when I'm focusing on this. And I'm like, it should not be this easy. And then I'll add so many other side things for me to do. And it's not even because I'm just distracted. I think it's just the subconscious guilt of wanting to do everything and wanting to be the best at everything and wanting to, yeah, just succeed at everything. So I mean, even now, like I've been focusing a lot more on this podcast, but last week I skipped an episode because I'm focusing on guests and booking everything. But then that also means less time on my personal fashion page. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to go to the fashion shows because I'm like not spending time on that. Or, these little things. So I'm just saying this because I feel like many other people could probably relate, but it's just not something that you talk about. Maybe it goes under the umbrella of productivity guilt or things like that. But also, I think, like you said, you and I are just maximizers and just super inspired by everything. And I'm just always one of the people. Also, when I was little, I wanted to dance, I wanted to figure skate, I wanted to be the best at swimming. I literally wanted to do everything. And actually, there were weekends where I would go from dance from like 7 a.m. to 10, swimming, and then ice skating right afterwards. And that was my Saturday morning.
Mm,
And that energy, I think, is still very present.
right. I also think just to sort of broaden move one of my straps. My life is sponsored by Velcro these days. I've got like
Velcro.
my Velcro leg brace, all this Velcro around me.
I love it.
Um, I think that something that I feel is important to note when we talk about this idea of like maximizing is that I actually feel that the human that being a maximizer is not. I mean, it is, it is a unique trait, and not everyone is a maximizer. However, at the same time, I also feel the human brain is designed to maximize. That's ultimately, it's how we're wired. And I think that's something that we are struggling with, that we are trying to grapple and comprehend as a society, is how do we balance that in a world where we have access to everything?
To
Like
everything at
we
our
can
fingertips.
learn,
Like we could
right?
do anything, learn anything, and it's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. Yes.
I mean, it's also links to like the fact that we have so many decisions to make, like minuscule decisions every single day. And before we did not have to make that decision. Like before it was like, what are we cooking? Like I mean, for if I'm a woman, like what are we cooking for dinner tonight? From for for the
Right.
husband to come home,
Right.
and or like whatever like that. Or like the men like back in the day, like how are we gonna find food to eat or something like that. Like
Right.
get your
Yes.
bow and arrow.
Yes. That realistically, like our brains are wired for a very simple, very binary, like reward sort of
Yes.
reward cost, mechanism, counterbalancing. But now we live in a world where anything can happen, as we were just talking about, like you can be anyone, you can do anything. Like, there you go, have fun, kiddos. And I feel like it sort of short circuits us in many ways. And that, you look at like a mid-century pilgrim, it's like, okay, it's like I become a blacksmith, a shoesmith, a farmer, or a warrior, or like a prostitute. Like, these are my options if I'm lucky. If I'm lucky, I
Yeah.
have options. Normally, you have one option. You do what your
Because
father,
like your parents probably
right? You do what
chose
your
it for
parents did,
you.
right? And that was it. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a larger evolution of our consciousness of our species. We'll see if evolution ends up being the right word. Maybe it's the downfall, but
No, I don't know, but it makes sense. I actually need to write that down because I need to remind myself this that there's time. Like you said, it's okay to focus on one thing. I think, yeah, that's something because we're not also, we as humans, I'm literally reading a book on neuroscience right now. I'm obsessed. I'm learning everything. But I love like it said that we can't multitask. Like it's actually like impossible. It's not good for humans to multitask. It's actually very counterproductive. I can firsthand say that. But it's just also I feel like this guilt and it's also like the surplus of opportunities of wanting to do everything. But then at the same time, sometimes you just get so overwhelmed that you end up like scrolling on TikTok, getting inspiration from other people that you're like, I should probably do, and then you don't do it. Exactly. So I think it's just something we have to focus on, exactly like Alex said, that there's time. And I feel like the reward, it's like doesn't come as instantly, but if we do focus on that one thing and then we get the result, it'll kind of bring us back to that simple human behavior that we're supposed to be. I mean, we're supposed to be focusing, but obviously
we're
it's a
supposed
lot
to be.
harder.
No, it's the funniest thing. You talk about multitasking. I'm like, like on Macs, you do the three fingers up and like all your windows go whoosh, and you see them all at the same time. I'm like, that's the worst invention ever. Because what that means is that I have my emails, I have my calendar, I have my notes, I have Safari, and I have my video editor and a photo editor, and like, some random other little thing going. And the minute I hit a roadblock in one of them, I'm like, this is too mentally taxing. I'm gonna do a different thing that's easier. And I go, "Phoom," and I go to the other one. And I'm like, oh, this is easy. And then I hit like a roadblock. I'm like, I get to a thing where I have to make a decision or I have to like make a challenging emotional
Oh
statement.
my
I'm like, oh,
god.
no, 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 no. We're gonna go back to it. And then I go back. And eventually it all gets sorted out. But
And
I'm
then
like,
you're like, oh, I should probably get lunch right now or something
right,
like
right. I'm
that.
like, okay, now I'm hungry. Like, let's break in. I actually haven't completed anything. So yeah,
Exactly.
okay. This was a few questions ago. You mentioned that like you really love that quote, "The rain will come," and
Okay.
I have this feeling that you would be delighted to hear the story of where that quote came from.
Yeah, I want to hear because what it reminds me of is like that game Spill the Beans. I don't know if you remember when you put like all the little beans, right? And if, like it and you have to see like which one spills and like you put the task and it doesn't really feel like any progress is being made. You put the task, you put the or like, you put the bean, and then eventually you put that one bean and it tips everything over. And then like that's how I see like success. Like you put these little steps here and there and it doesn't feel like anything is actually coming. You're just putting these steps, but then eventually there's that one step that like where like the success just flows. That's how I see it. Is that what like the rain will come kind of stands for, or
No, 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 no. Well,
okay?
I
Maybe I
mean,
misinterpreted it.
yes, yes, it can totally be interpreted that way. Um, but in this case, I mean, for I guess it's much more tangible thing, and that
Okay.
your being metaphor is a whole. I mean, I'm like again, I'm like that's another podcast. The rain will come. Okay, the quick story behind the rain will come. So let's see. It is quarantine. It's like June-ish, it's May-ish, and I'm very poor and I have no prospects for my life. I'm like,
You're like
what?
at home.
Right, I'm like at home, like, what is going on? And I'm trying to find a way to make money, right? That's my whole thing. I go to New York to make these to actually to I mean not as I didn't go to make those few dance videos that I spoke about earlier, but I went to I mean really I went to see if there were in fact radioactive spiders crawling the streets like
Like
CNN
they
was
say.
saying. Right? Like they were saying they're like, New York is infested with radioactive spiders, the streets are empty, there's nothing left. I was like, okay, well let's go see that for myself. And then I got back, I was like, oh, Shake Shack is still open, so clearly things are
So
okay.
clearly things are
Um,
kind of
right. I
fine.
was like, clearly things are kind of fine. So
That's
I'm
a good indicator.
yeah, no, truly, truly. If Shake Shack is open, we're gonna be okay. Um, so I meet an old friend of mine by the name of Taylor Massa. She's out in LA right now. She was a classmate of mine, and we're talking blah blah blah. And somehow, like unemployment comes up, and like unemployment money, and she's like, yeah, I applied for New York pandemic unemployment, like insurance, blah, 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 what have you. And I woke up to $7,000 in my bank account. I was like, hello? I was like,
What?
excuse me? It's like, you did a what now? It's like, tell me more. Tell me more. She's like, yeah, I have actually been collecting since like, since like a few weeks ago. And turns out you can collect retroactively. So like from the time